Welcome to the Emotional Eating Unwrapped podcast. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, an emotional eating and weight loss coach for women looking to fall in love with eating, create healthy attachments with food, and lose weight sustainably. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I'm here once again with co-pilot Kassi. Hi, Kassi.
Hi, everybody. Good to be back.
So happy. So today we're going to do something, I guess, not so different. We're going to do our first Q&A. We're going to do our first Q&A episode. This is something that we want to start doing monthly. So we would love our audience members to submit questions that we could answer during these episodes. And we have some today, and we're going to go over them. And the theme is going to be around prioritizing healthy eating habits, just prioritizing just staying sane with your eating in a busy world. Because we know a lot of the women that I work with that listen to this podcast have so much going on, lots of responsibility, lots of different balls up in the air. And so we're going to talk about some ways that we can just maintain sanity, keep that priority top of mind, and we're going to answer some questions. So I guess we'll just start with the first question that I got. How does that sound?
I love it. Let's jump into it.
Awesome. Okay, so the first question that I got was from someone named Lillian, and I'm going to read the question. It was kind of long, but that's okay. Hi, Alana. I've been following your account and listening to all of your podcasts all the way from South Africa. Amazing. Your content has been such a big part of my healing process. So firstly, thank you for that. You mentioned the other day that if anyone has questions, they can send them through. So I thought I would give it a try. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Right, Kassi?
You're doing it. I love it.
What I am struggling with is creating an environment where my nervous system can be regulated properly. I recently accepted a promotion and work in a high performance team with a lot of men, where there is inevitably a lot of pressure, and at home I'm a mom to 2 boys aged 4 and 6. While I try to incorporate bite-sized self-care routines throughout the day, I still don't find that to be enough for me to be able to function with a calm nervous system. Honestly, a lot of my life is also just rushing from one thing to the next and hoping to not be late. But I am ambitious and driven, so I do enjoy my job a lot, even though it does cause anxiety to some extent. So my question is, do you have any additional tips for how to create the right environment to be able to live life with a calm nervous system, even for someone who operates in an environment like I do? I know you advise many other successful career women, so there must be a way to navigate this.
Great question.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that question?
Well, honestly, when you were reading it to me, I thought, and you touched about this a little bit, I think in our previous episode together, is that kind of concept of the masculine and feminine energies. And I can see that kind of evident in this person's work-life balance is they have this kind of really charged masculine career. They kind of mentioned that they have a lot of men in their job. They're really ambitious, a lot of really great qualities that kind of fall into that masculine energy. And at home, it seems like they're kind of struggling to have that, I don't know, softness, for lack of better words, or maybe that soft place to land, which I suppose kind of leans into the feminine energy. And so that's really kind of what stuck out to me in what they were saying. So definitely finding that balance between the two of them, I think would be really beneficial, you know?
Yeah, that's such a good point, actually. And I think something that's missed in the masculine feminine energy conversation is that being a mother, even though you're a mother, it's very masculine in its energy. You're taking care of someone else's needs. You're taking care of someone else. You're putting them first. And especially as a mother, that mothering type of energy in the definition of an energetic dynamic is very masculine because it's doing.
Yeah, it's like an activator role.
It's providing, it's protecting. And by nature, masculine energy is provider, protector. On the other hand, pregnancy, being pregnant is very feminine.
Mm.
Do you see?
Yeah.
And so I think it's really interesting for people to understand that when you have a very high performance job and you're a mom, you are in your masculine energy 24/7. And so I think that this question, so it sounds like she really likes her job. She likes being in her masculine energy at work.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be that it's in her personal life that she needs to adapt her environment. And she said, do you have any additional tips for how to create the right environment to be able to live with life with a calm nervous system, even for someone who operates in an environment like I do? I think the important thing to reiterate here is that she said, I enjoy my job a lot, even though it causes anxiety to some extent. So I think that the opportunity for her here is to cultivate the skills of communication and connecting to her core values and needs in her personal life so that she could get support there and be more in her feminine energy there and be able to then find that nervous system balance there. Obviously, she might need to create some boundaries at work or some other things like that. But I think that oftentimes, and this is where a lot of the women I work with also struggle, is that their masculine energy leaks into their personal life. And it's less about changing that and more about building another container side by side that they can vacillate between.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think that creating that strong dichotomy is that feminine energy will then fuel your masculine energy. It's not that that your work is necessarily draining you. You really enjoy it. Or it's not necessarily that you're like, I don't want to do my work, or I'm feeling a lot of dread around having or doing any of my work. It's that I want to feel content with both sides. And I think that cultivating that home life, that feminine energy in your home life, will actually help charge the thing that you enjoy doing, that career that you built that you really enjoy. And I completely agree that there can still be those separate containers that work in synergy to charge both elements.
100%. And that's what it really is about, right? It's about developing another element. It's not about changing an element.
Yeah, or taking away or trying to minimize the feminine or minimize the masculine. It's boosting up whatever is, for lack of better words, lacking at the moment to kind of fill the cup, for sure.
Exactly. And I think for Lillian specifically, I think that connecting to what her values are personally and recognizing they might, and her needs personally, that they might be separate than her values and needs out professionally, and then creating the conditions and the communication and framework that she needs to get those needs met and build out that element of her life. I think that she'll find that her nervous system relaxes, which is what she's looking for. And that's a lot of what I teach women to do in both my course, Decoding Permanent Weight Loss, and the Emotional Eating Solution, because the women who work with me know this, and who listen know this, that so much of this is not about food. It's about these skills and learning how to create that harmony in your life so that your environment conditions support your goals, your weight goals, your eating habit goals, your nervous system goals as well. It's less about having to change something and fix. And I think that's a big theme too. Oftentimes we think we have to change and fix and all these things, when really it's just about readjusting and potentially growing something else that we haven't grown yet, right? It's that abundance, right? It's that abundance mindset. We don't have to fit something into a small thing and have to make all these cuts and make all these edits or cut things out. We have to just learn how to grow our capacity and have more, but just have boundaries, communicate, all these things.
I think that's a great, point for Lillian's question specifically, is the fact that might be the shift for her, is the fact that it's not about taking away. And it's not about, I need to change or I need to cut out or make these cuts, kind of like you were saying. It's just more so the small adjustments and the reframing of how you're looking at these things, instead of being like, I'm not doing it right. I'm not And so I think that's a limiting belief of being like, I need to cut things out. I need to change, when in reality you have those things. It's just those adjustments and kind of where you're placing them.
Yes, for sure. And also recognizing that it's a new skill that she might have to develop. As accomplished and as ambitious and as skilled as she is in her work and being a mother and all those things, it's a different skill to grow your feminine energy.
Mm-hmm. But it's a skill she already possesses. It's like learning to ride a bike. When you're driving with 3 wheels, you're doing the motion, you're doing the thing. But once you take the training wheels off, you're like, this feels like a totally new thing, but you're doing the same things. It's just like replaced. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's exactly also, I think, to the next point about the importance of feedback. Mm-hmm. And what I like to call going into the wild when you're learning new skills.
I love that phrase. It's just too good.
Right. Because it's like we can, if I were coaching Lillian and I would give her all of these direct coaching prompts for her life, right? I'd be like, okay, so these are some directives of how to build a skill of feminine energy based on knowing her and her life and all these things. But at the end of the day, she has to synthesize that. And it will only synthesize by exactly what I say, taking it out into the wild and practicing it in her real life, in her real relationships, and actually then getting feedback back, and to your point about the bike, it's like you take the training wheel off and then you're on 2 wheels now and then it's shaky and then you fall. When you fall off the bike and you scrape your knee, you can see that 2 ways. You could be like, oh my God, I suck. I failed at bike riding. Or you could say, oh, what can I learn from what I did there and adjust and get feedback and hop on the bike again, practice again, and do little tweaks here and there to then be in balance and continue to go forward. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what this is actually, right? It's like, here, I'll give you some directives, you practice, you get feedback, and then you go out again, you iterate.
And, as immersive as that experience sounds, like I'm sure that it also sounds like there's an element of detachment in a way because of that idea that if you fail, it's not square one, or if we undid all of the doing. Because I think, myself included, when I think about integrating a new practice for growth in my life, I think like if I fall off the bike, I wasn't doing it right to begin with. I need to go way back to the theories of it all. And I'm not ready for integrating it and taking it into the wild. And so when I say detachment, it sounds like there's an element of detachment involved where you have to be like, oh, it's not the end of the world if I fail. Like, it just means that I need to get back on the bike. I don't need to go back to the house and get a new bike. There's a little bit of distance that you need to have of being like, no, this doesn't need to hit this crazy catastrophic end for me to feel like I'm ready to get back on the bike.
100%. I like to call it disentanglement, not so much attachment.
No, I really like that.
Yeah, it's like similar to when, you have a piece of thread that ends up being tangled. You don't just throw the thread out, you try to disentangle the thread. So the theory is that you're still engaged, but you're not entangled. And it's not as black and white, right? So disentanglement is you have that certain distance that you described, and you don't take it so personally, right? So it's like you said, it's like everything is like imperfect and impersonal. Mm-hmm. And there's another one that I'm forgetting right now that I have in my course somewhere. And that's really what you want to remember about it. And I think that when you want to change things on a nervous system level, or you want to change behaviors, which seem like habits, and they're typically then unconscious or subconscious, you have to be able to have some sort of ability to disentangle from the results.
To continue with our metaphor, I'm thinking it's one of those things where you have to look at riding a bike as its own separate entity. It's not Kassi being wrong. It's just Kassi can't ride her bike yet. She's not good at riding her bike yet. You have to detach yourself from it. And you're like, the bike riding skill that I have, or the bike riding skill that I'm trying to become good at or become fluent in, it's not about the fact that I'm never going to be able to be good at it, or the fact that I'm never going to do it. It's the fact that I'm not good yet. I'm practicing it and I'm bringing it, like you said, out into the wild and actually doing the thing. And so it doesn't mean that when I fail, it inherently is a problem with me. It's that this is my first time getting out there.
Right. And the thing is, it's not failure. Like, it's feedback.
Exactly. That's a perfect word for it, to reframe.
Yeah. It's not failure, it's feedback. And you can apply that to this question when you want to change your environment, right? How can I change my environment to calm my nervous system? I mean, that means that you have to change behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And behavior change means that you're probably going to have to feel certain things that maybe you're not feeling right now, right? You're only feeling the end of it, which is anxiety, contraction, or whatever triggered her to ask that question to begin with. That's what she's feeling. But in order to change the behavior, she's going to have to take a microscope to some of the things that potentially you're not seeing in the behavior, and you have to feel some things and make subtle changes to some things that require new skills, right? Like new conversational skills, new boundaries, new ways of behaving with people that might feel very out of your comfort zone. And you're going to have to learn how to be with that new information that is born out of experience, right? It's really different when someone tells you how it's going to be and they are like, it's going to be like this, then this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Then when you go out in the wild yourself and you actually get the information in your own cells and your own experiential information, the validated experience, the validated faith, very different. And that is much more nuanced. That's much more colored. And that's not going to be black and white. That's not going to be right or wrong. You're going to have to look at it in a new lens.
Mm-hmm. So when somebody is ready kind of to take this out into the wild, what is a circumstance that you would say that people would be looking out for? Is there a specific instance that you find that people have their first encounter where they're like, whoa, hold on, like this is that experience where I'm taking it into the wild?
Yeah, I think that with changing your eating habits, especially as an emotional eater, we were giving this example in relation to someone wanting to change their environment. But I think it's the same thing with emotional eating. I will give people directives on how to behave with food per se to change their compulsive eating habits while also not feeling like they're on a diet or restricted.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give specific directives for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you try it. And then you get feedback from that and you realize that it's like, oh, wow, I feel way more urgency to continue eating this.
Mm-hmm.
I could say to you, you might feel that way, right? Like you might feel that way. And they feel that way. And let's say they continue eating anyway. You could say, oh, that's a failure. But it's not a failure because you remembered that I said that you would say that. You recognize now that you maybe continue to eat with compulsion. You've clocked that.
Mm-hmm. You've planted that seed.
Right. So now that's feedback, right? And so the next time you go out into the wild and you do it, you do the thing, the hope is that you took the experience that you had before, which was potentially disappointment, that you necessarily didn't quote unquote succeed in it that time. And you remember that didn't feel very good because you have a goal, right? So I always tell people, just remember that you have a goal. And that's what's motivating you to take these new actions and the new behaviors. It's why you're going to take these new directives, you're going to apply them. And even if you didn't do them to their full capacity, take responsibility for what happened, recognize that you're disappointed. So I think there's an inflection period when something didn't go right to either be a victim or be empowered.
Mm-hmm.
So say you had a directive, you had a new skill that I had told you to do, and you didn't do it. You tried, it didn't happen. You can either be a victim and say, oh, I'm a failure, this is never going to work, this doesn't work. Or you could say, I didn't do it. It feels really sucky. I really want to change. And so I'm looking forward to the next opportunity that I can apply this new skill again and do it differently.
It's almost regenerative instead of.
Exactly.
I love that example too, because it shows that it starts seemingly small. It starts with making smaller changes, of being attuned into, in this example, attuned into your feelings when you're eating, when you're having this urge to overeat or something along those lines, because that's like the tip of the iceberg. Once you start to do that and you kind of have these experience with these behaviors, you're kind of like, that's the thing that kind of like starts me down that landslide if things go poorly for me in that experience. But being attuned into your emotion is being in the wild with it, being attuned to being like, that's how I felt about it. I don't have to feel like that. I'm now aware of how I'm feeling after the fact is those changes. It's not like I'm going into the wild and I'm slaying the beast. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And to the other point, the other side is if you do the skill correctly and you don't overeat, it's easy to then feel like you're on a diet. It's easy to then be like, oh, I'm putting restrictions on myself. And that's another side where when you're trying to change your behavior with overeating, or you actually do want to lose weight, in which case you have to adapt and adjust maybe some of the ways you're eating, taking that into the wild also means potentially feeling like you are on a diet and you are restricting. But again, the inflection place here is you could be a victim and say, oh, I'm restricting, this is a diet. Or you could say, I'm empowering myself to make boundaried decisions. And it feels a little weird. I am feeling that sense of incompletion. I am feeling that sense of wanting more, or of that kind of urgency that has been my habit for a long time that I haven't been paying attention to. I only paid attention to it after that I ate the whole bag of chips and was like, oh, I feel like crap. But now you're in it with your moment to moment experience, which when you begin the journey of seeing how the sausage is made for your behavior, essentially, it's very unnerving psychologically and actually nervy for your nervous system. And so you're going to feel your nervous system on height when you first start seeing how the sausage is made for your behaviors. But that's the only way that you're going to change them. And I think that it's like you said, even when we go back to the bike metaphor, you'll probably sick over at this point, but you can't just visualize yourself into riding a bike. You can't be like on training wheel and then like, if I visualize myself, I'm going to get on a bike and it's going to be great. Like you're going to fall off the bike. It's going to be wobbly. It's going to not be great. You're going to feel every twist and turn and like side to side, and your nervous system is going to be on high alert until you keep getting on the bike. You do it enough. You get comfortable with the feedback. You integrate and synthesize the feedback from a place of self-worth and empowerment. And that's how you become smooth with the bike.
Yeah, it's using those points of discomfort that you'll only find when you're in the wild. Going back to kind of what you were referencing, the heightened nervous system. What specific points are causing these nervous system flare-ups, for lack of better words, where you're feeling that resistance, where you're feeling that discomfort? And it's almost like a beacon or a parameter, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, that's that exact point where I'm like, oh, that feels unsettling to me. That feels not great to me. And then you can take it back to base camp and be like, okay, well, how are we going to adjust next time? How are we going to make it so we don't hit that electric fence metaphorically and physically?
Yeah, or maybe it's just something that you just have to deal with, right? Even with emotional eating and changing behaviors with food, those initial sensations of, oh, I feel like I'm incomplete. That's just something you just gotta get used to. And eventually that will change into not feeling that way. And that's something that I 100% guarantee. But you have to get through that initial piece of it. On the other side, if you do end up overeating and you do end up feeling disappointed, You have to kind of move through that feeling of, oh my God, this is never going to work for me. I'm not going to succeed. You really have to take the opportunity to see that as, okay, what skill did I not implore here?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a lot of times it's because people are worried about feeling incomplete. A lot of times these sides of the coins speak to each other. A lot of times there is an underneath worry that people are like, oh, well, if I stop a reading, I'm going to feel incomplete. And then there's some mindset stuff that is a lot of times happening there.
Mm-hmm.
And so every time that we try something and we practice it, we get feedback. And we can only get that feedback that's going to sharpen our edges. And that's going to, sharpen the diamond. But look, a diamond becomes a diamond under pressure. Doesn't become a diamond because it sits there.
It's true. Yeah, I think it's so interesting hearing this too, because it translates it goes full circle, exactly how we started this episode with the question from Lillian. These are versatile skills, you know what I mean? It could be as niche as emotional eating, but it could also go back to the wide scale thought of work-life balance. But I completely agree. Sharpening that skill doesn't mean that you don't already possess the skill. It's just a matter of sharpening that weapon. It might be a little aggressive in the metaphor, but like sharpening that skill, and like you said, that diamond, because it's not going to happen unless you put it under a little bit of pressure and a little bit of discomfort, and knowing that the world and life in general has discomfort built into it. And so when we lean into that a little bit, we're able to kind of push our boundaries and make things a little bit easier on ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, the more discomfort we can hold, and the more that we know our own edges and boundaries, that's how we live a life that's full and that never feels out of our control. And that's the thing. You don't feel in control by eliminating stuff in your life. You feel in control by including more things in your life with a greater sense of your own understanding of your own edges, your own boundaries, your own needs, values, communication ability. It's just, those are the skills, and you sharpen them through living, not through theory. You sharpen them through living and through failing at doing it at first, and seeing the failure as feedback, and then iterating and continuing to do that until it's, feels as smooth as riding a bike on two wheels once you know how to do it. And in that, in that vein, it's really important to recognize, even with emotional eating and in all circumstances, that our circumstances often feel rigid because we're not willing to expand our own moments of it. Yeah. A lot of times binges happen because we're so contracted in this one moment that we think this is how it is. And then it's like, it is how it is, but not because this is who you are, but because you didn't expand the mindset of it all.
Right.
Right. Like you didn't zoom out. So you had a binge. Doesn't mean now you have to have like that for the next 3 weeks. Right. You just have to learn the skill of what we've talked about this whole time, which is to take the feedback of it all. And then when the next urge to binge comes, which might be an hour later, 2 hours later, 4 hours later, you make the different choice and deal with the new emotions. And there might be a way where it goes perfectly, and odds are it's not going to be perfectly the second time, the third time, the fourth time. You're just going to keep getting more feedback and more ways to do it. But every time you're calming your nervous system, every time you're polishing the gem, every time you do it. And so once you start seeing these experiences as that is how real long-term sustaining change is made. And so, yeah, I'm really happy that we got to chat about this today, because I think talking about how in your environment and how circumstances impact behavior, eating, relationally, all that stuff is so, so important when it comes to just healing, and when it comes to living our lives as our highest value selves with like low stress. not so much anxiety, self-care, self-love, self-value, all these things. And yeah, I just love having these conversations with you.
I know, me too. I love knowing and like finding out through these conversations with you too is the idea that these big concepts like this, they don't have to stay big concepts. They really are integrated in those small details of your life. And oftentimes to heal the big picture, it starts with something that you didn't even expect. And then it kind of like funnels into it all. So I love having these conversations because I feel like it's very eye-opening to but not only me too, but I feel our listeners too.
I know. So true. I love it. I'm going to end the episode for today. I think this is, again, one of our longer ones, as always, because our conversations are just so thoughtful and great. But again, I just want to remind listeners that we have a Q&A tab in our show notes, I believe. You can also send Be Well by AK a DM on Instagram. That's where Lillian sent her question. So feel free to send us messages there, but we love doing these Q&A. Hopefully you guys enjoy it as well. And thank you again so much for listening to another episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped, where we talk about loving food, losing weight sustainably with lasting change. There are lots of free resources on my website for helping you to understand yourself, heal yourself, live your best life. So please go to www.bewellbyak.com. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with anyone you feel might benefit from this empowering knowledge. And until next time, I'm Alana. Thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.